All right, joining us now is Democratic Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado. He's a member of the Senate's Tax Writing Finance Committee. Senator, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Everything I just said and Stephanie just said is based on some conjecture and rumor and information we've been able to glean, because once again, there isn't a final bill.
Right. Well, everything you said is I think is accurate. Not only is there not a final bill, there has never been a hearing in the Senate Finance Committee on the Senate version of this bill, much less the bill that's working its way through the conference committee. Not a single hearing.
Have they made an argument to why that is? Because tax cuts are something that you could actually see some bipartisanship. You're giving up the opportunity to have a Joe Manchin get on board. There are Democrats who may have wanted to play ball here.
I don't think it's just Joe Manchin. I think you could have written a bill. Here, I'll write it right now on your show. Let's cut the corporate rate to 25%. Let's increase the child tax credit so it really makes a difference for middle-class families. Let's do something on repatriation and spend some of that money on infrastructure. That's 85 votes in the Senate.
Senator, I want to just play for you. We've made this point a few times already, but I want to play for you the selling point here that once again President Trump made yesterday afternoon as he made what some thought was his final pitch to the American people. Let's listen together.
We want to give you, the American people, a giant tax cut for Christmas. And when I say giant, I mean giant. The typical family of four earning $75,000 will see an income tax cut of more than $2,000, slashing their tax bill in half.
So the one thing in there that is true is that there is a giant tax cut involved here, and it involves going from 35% to 21% for corporations. But Republicans are trying very hard to sell this as a middle-class tax cut. It's a bit of a middle-class tax cut for a short amount of time, which could end up as an increase to many people in the middle class, but a guaranteed tax cut for corporations.
It is a huge tax cut for corporations and for people at the very top that they are trying to masquerade as a middle-class tax cut. But if you look at the numbers, and I know you guys are numerate, what the president is saying is just completely false. What he said yesterday, what he said in Missouri is completely false. In the Senate version of this bill, which has only gotten worse in the conference, there is $34 billion that is going to the 572,000 households in this country that are fortunate enough to earn more than $1 million. That on average is $59,000 a household forever. This year, next year, the year after that. There are 90 million households, not 500,000, 90 million, that earn $50,000 and below. On average, they're going to see a $160 cut in year one. That's the best year of their plan, which is $7.50 a paycheck. So you tell me, do you think the American people want to borrow money from our children to pay for a $34 billion tax cut for people that are already making more than $1 million in an economy that's at basically full employment, but where people in the middle class can't afford housing, can't afford higher ed, can't afford early childhood?
Take politics aside for a moment, because for me, the head scratcher is President Trump's base, the people who voted for him, are not going to benefit from it. And rich people who didn't vote for him are going to benefit. It's sort of this reverse Robin Hood effect. Right. But take us to your state, the state of Colorado. What is it going to do to the people there? Because when people tune in, this kind of goes over. They're going, great, politics, I don't care. But what is it going to mean for my life?
You know, Stephanie, what it's going to mean is that very wealthy people in Colorado, and we're happy to have a lot of them in our state, will do very well in this plan. The middle class will not see a benefit from this plan, and certainly not a benefit that will endure, unlike the corporate tax rate. And they are all going to have to pay this back, because their sons and daughters are the ones that are going to be hit with $1.4 trillion, being generous. That is to say, it could be as high as 2.5 in additional deficit that's not being used to end poverty or invest in Colorado's roads and bridges or deal with a very serious opioid epidemic. 50,000 people a year are dying from this epidemic. We have done nothing to address it. So if you're in Colorado, as I was last Friday, and you're in a rural county where 92% of the people in the jail are addicted to heroin, and there's no answer coming from anybody, we've got a real problem in our hands. And to add another $1.4 trillion to the deficit without responding to these emergencies, I think is unbelievably irresponsible.
And we've got different estimates about what the addition to the deficit will be. Some as low as $500 billion and some as high as $2 trillion. But regardless, there's no estimate, even from conservative groups, that says that there will not be an increase to the deficit of some sort. And the danger, to your point, and the one that Stephanie points out all the time, Senator, is that once we get to this point where the deficit's really growing and we've got these tax cuts and we have to, the political consideration is to keep the tax cuts in place, then programs for the neediest among us get cut, or in your case, don't get funded.
So that's the best case scenario, is that programs are going to get cut. But what happens if we have something on the Korean Peninsula that we really have to deal with? What if there is another recession? To me, it's just I arrived here when President Obama arrived here in 2009, when we were going into the worst recession since the Great Depression. And the people that are now advancing this legislation, we're all attacking President Obama's attempt to try to rescue our economy when we had a 10% unemployment rate, because we then had a $1.5 trillion deficit. When he left office, the deficit was about $550 billion. Today, it's $660 billion. This is going to add at least another trillion, probably $1.4 trillion to the deficit, and we will not be able to do the things that the American people need us to do, either preserve that safety net or invest in the future. Anybody under the age of 30 should be out here right now protesting outside this cap.
Is the reason they're not because deficit is too abstract? You know, the three of us can agree when you jack up the deficit this much, it's going to have a devastating effect to so many people for years and years to come. But does that resonate with people? When you say to someone, I'm going to take your health care away, they're going to march. They're going to show up in Washington and say, you cannot take my child's health care away. But is the issue here, the reason people aren't standing up and fighting against it louder or more present in D.C. because it's too abstract?
I think that's part of it. I think people also tend not to believe politicians when they're talking about this stuff because they know people use it for political advantage.
Right.
The reality is, the unfortunate truth is that when Bill Clinton left the White House, he left a projected deficit of $5.6 trillion over 10 years. And there were actually hearings in this place about what to do with that surplus. I'm sorry, it was a surplus, $5.6 trillion surplus. And then George Bush passed a tax cut in 2001. He passed a tax cut in 2003. They said they would pay for themselves, just as they're saying that they would pay for themselves now, that there wouldn't be a deficit. He went into Afghanistan. He went into Iraq. He passed the 2003 tax cut after he had invaded Iraq. And then they passed Medicare Part D, which was a prescription drug program for seniors that they didn't pay for. And then his supply side economics tanked the economy when we were in the worst recession since the Great Depression, and it was $1.5 trillion. And all the Republicans around here said, that's Barack Obama's deficit. It's outrageous. It's not true. And I think the way we need to get people mobilized on that issue, it is a complicated issue, is young people in this country that we are not investing in the way our parents and grandparents invested in us, because the share of money we're spending on discretionary domestic spending is down 35% since 1980. And at the same time, we're saying to them, we're going to stick you with the bill, is no different than my wife and I buying a house, living in it, and telling my three daughters, you got to pay the mortgage. That's what we're doing.
Senator,
and for the most irresponsible thing we could do right now. I mean, if we're going to do this, let's have a middle tax
let's actually do it. Right. If you're going to say you're having a middle-class tax cut, let's have a middle-class tax cut. We can argue about whether we can even afford that. Senator, thanks very much for joining us. Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado. The senator brings up a really good point in that the share of GDP that goes into investment, reinvestment, infrastructure you just talked about earlier, is at the smallest it's been in decades. So there's still lots of government spending going on. That's the problem with debt and deficits. There are moments in which they're really important to have because you have to stimulate the economy. But all we're doing now is we're financing using debt a tax cut that doesn't get us roads. It doesn't get us buildings. It doesn't get us infrastructure. It just gets us a tax cut.
I think he made a great point that his three daughters would have to pay the mortgage. If my kids had to pay the mortgage, they would kick me and Andy out. They wouldn't want to have to live with us. How about yours?
It just doesn't make sense. Just be honest about what it is. It's a corporate tax cut, which no one was clamoring for, and it's going to be financed with debt.
And it's a corporate tax cut that could potentially help the economy and boost the economy. But the economy is already kicking it
So give it to people.
Corporations
Give it to, as the senator said, individual middle-class people are struggling. We know that. We know that for all the success this economy has seen since 2009, since the market bottomed out, since unemployment bottomed out, it has not been shared in the same way.
We know that. It's one of the drivers that helped win President Trump the presidency.
Right, because people were frustrated.
Yes.
Where's my share of this thing? This tax bill doesn't.
Yes. Remember, this is a huge gift for the real estate industry, for the private equity industry.
Right.
I keep harping to you that carried interest is still in there. Steve Schwartzman stood next to the president for the last few months. The day after the Senate put their bill through, or put their version through, Steve Schwartzman threw a fundraiser for President Trump, $100,000 a ticket at his apartment. How does this help the Trump voter? I don't know.
All right, let's move on to a different story. Happening this hour, the U.S.